Hey, welcome to Leaving Crazy.
Yeah.
Welcome to Leaving CrazyTown with Finn and Sarah. We were just talking about, we were doing a little prep work for this video, and we decided we're going to do it Finn's way, because I love to just riff.
Free flow.
Yeah, and Sarah wants a little bit more of a plan, but I don't let her have it.
I said I'm rigid?
No, I say you're a planner. And I usually am
Control
too, but
freak.
not on these. Anyway, today we're going to talk about what?
We were going to talk about the subtlety of resentment. And you right now are going, I'm not resentful. Yeah, I've thought that too. And then I have 35 resentments when I do some writing. So why is this important though, Finn? Why is it important to talk about recognizing when you're resentful? What possible consequences can happen?
Well, we could be miserable. We could get depressed.
Yes.
We could wander around why am I discontented? Why don't I feel good? Why am I in fear? Why am I this? Why am I that? You can start to avoid places because somebody got to you and you think oh, it's justified. They did this or that. And so I'm not going to go there anymore. You could go out and drink if you're in recovery. There are a myriad of things. You could start fights. You could be rageful. You could have impulsive responses to things. You could do all kinds of crazy spending, eating, whatever.
Yeah, yes, all of those.
That's not what you meant?
And you could suddenly think, oh, why is my boss such a jerk? Why is my husband such a jerk?
Oh, the
why
three
is
count.
All of a sudden you're blaming everyone else, but who's the most common?
You're miserable. Yeah.
You're miserable. Yeah, everything starts bothering you. Other people might start having panic attacks.
See, for me,
anxious.
it's more subtle.
It is very
I
subtle.
tend to, so just a little history.
Go ahead.
It was very obvious to me. Well, I'm in recovery, as most everyone knows.
Yes.
When I first got into recovery and I heard people talking about resentments and anger towards others and fears, I thought, what a bunch of losers. I'm just kind and loving. Codependent, more like it. I'm kind and loving. I don't have resentments and I barely have any fears. If I'm afraid of heights, I jump off a cliff. That's just who I am. I run at it.
Very familiar.
Well, I learned that, going after a fear aggressively in rage, and doing the thing you're afraid of is actually a response to fear.
Yes.
And that
Right.
saying yes to everybody against your own will isn't being loving and kind. It's being codependent. And that creates
Resentment.
deep level of resentment. So by the time I stayed sober long enough to not medicate those resentments, boy,
Yes.
was I a rage fest. So
Absolutely.
I did some writing. I got to look at how I was responding to my resentment, and it was so over the top.
Yes.
If I resented you because I thought you'd cut me out of your life, I'd cut you out first.
Yes.
I would do all these really drastic things, tell people off, get in fights, things like that. Just stop speaking to people.
Yes.
So fast forward today, I don't respond to resentment that way anymore.
Yes.
So sometimes I don't know I have them.
Yes.
But I do have a signal for me. Would you like to know what it is?
Yes, I want to know the signal, and
Do you
I
want
also
me to hang on to it?
And I just hold on for 1 second. The other thing about resentment is very often it's when we're hurt or afraid or ashamed. Sometimes we don't really get in touch with the anger piece because it's showing up like some other emotion. All right, what's your signal?
My signal for me is, oh, that shouldn't bother me.
Oh yeah,
That is huge for me.
dismissing.
I dismiss things because I know they shouldn't bother me, but they
Yes.
do. So I'm dismissing my response to it by saying I'm using my head to override how I responded emotionally to something instead of just dealing with the feelings. Oh, that shouldn't bother me. This shouldn't bother me. That shouldn't bother me. This shouldn't bother me. Well, all of a sudden, the level of resentments are they're getting shoved down. That's
right.
shoving them down.
That's
We're
right.
filling up and
And you know what the other thing I've heard a lot of? Oh, I've let that go. Oh, I've let that go.
oh, have you really?
And yet, then meanwhile, they're yelling at their partners and, oh, but I let that go.
There's a man at a group that I go to, and he's constantly saying how he's worked through this issue and he's let it go.
Of course.
And then every single meeting when he shares, he brings that issue up. Does that sound like it's let go, Miss Therapist?
That's the other thing to think about, too.
Are you talking about it a lot?
Yes! If you keep bringing up, your boyfriend from 10 years ago that broke up with you or whatever, something repetitively, think to yourself, who Whose issue is this? It's no longer about the boyfriend. Just think about that. Our message here is freedom, flow, spaciousness, being able to just be fully self-expressed. And you can't do that when you're full of resentment.
Even though you don't think you are.
Yes, that's the key.
Yeah, if you find yourself repeating a story to people, if you find yourself hating everyone around you, if you think life would be better off in a cabin all by yourself,
I was just going to say
because that's where I go.
I was just going to say.
I need to live alone.
It's so funny. I used to have this client that would, I don't know, every like 3 months she'd go, I need to go up to North Conway for a weekend. And I'd be like, okay, I mean, nothing wrong with going to North Conway for a weekend, but the urgency was like, well, what do you think's going to happen in North Conway that you get? And it was always, she needed to be alone because she was overwhelmed with resentment and feelings, couldn't speak up, couldn't set a boundary, so then needed to leave. So
where does Finn go when Finn needs to get alone? The woods.
Yeah, again, fine. Sorry.
I literally said to someone this morning, I need to either go underwater or go to the woods and hike.
What?
Well, because when I used to go underwater, it would like drowns
In the
out
tub, I did that.
I did it in the tub, but I do it in the ocean all the time because it drowns out the world.
Of course.
It's like just you and your heartbeat, and maybe a shark or two.
The problem with that is it doesn't solve the underlying issue. So first step, awareness. If you notice you're feeling a little off,
Restless, irritable,
and discontented, or you're shutting down and isolating and you notice, oh geez, I'm suddenly not wanting to be with that friend anymore. I don't want to go to that meeting anymore. I don't want to do this. Or suddenly I'm eating
or
chocolate cakes every
shopping,
day.
or binge watching movies, or like gambling,
yes.
talking behind people's backs.
There's so many.
Focusing on other people's actions.
Yes, is the bottom line.
Can you believe what so-and-so did?
Yes.
Yeah.
Say to yourself, what's happening with me? What do I need to bring to the surface that may be bothering me that I'm not aware of? Because the thing is, it's progressive and it will get worse if you don't resolve it.
And I would suggest when you ask yourself, what's going on with me? You're sitting in a quiet state.
Yes.
Because I can easily be, what's going on with me? Nothing. It's all her.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Instead of just sitting, letting it rise up from within, not come down from the head. So if it comes up from within, it's probably the truth. If it's coming from here,
yes.
Might be a justification or a lie you're telling yourself.
Absolutely. Just ask yourself a few questions. I mean, we're not going to do a whole like workshop on resentment.
We won't. We might.
But
someday.
we might someday. But just ask yourself a few questions. You know, what is it that I want from this person or in this situation that I'm not getting? Do you know what I mean? Is there some unrealistic expectation about this person? Have I told myself or made up a story about this situation? And it's really, if I was to look at the facts, we say this a lot here, just the facts. You know, just the facts. I was thinking it was some other.
Do you know one time I had a resentment against you? I never needed to deal with it because I wrote it out and got to see it and I shared it with somebody. But Sarah's my friend, and she told me one day, a couple of years ago maybe, she was going to dinner and a movie with somebody. And that's what we do, you know, and she does it with her son and every one of her friends. But I was like, that's what, and I was so like, she's got other friends. What about me? It was more like a jealousy, but I had a little resentment. So I wrote it out and I looked at it. Like I had this shortage. Like if she was this is the story I was telling myself.
Yeah.
If she was spending time with someone else, she didn't want to spend time with me.
Right.
It had nothing to do with Finn. It's an old story of feeling left out and nobody wanting to be my friend, and, you know, all that stuff. And because I did the work, I was able to, many times after that, she went out with this person who I was also friends with, be so happy that my friends were out having a good time. And I could engage in conversation with them about the movie they saw, the lunch they had, or whatever. But if I had just been like, I shouldn't be upset with that, pushed it aside or whatever, and didn't look at the underlying stuff, I would have never had the freedom.
Yeah, or you would have just said to me, I can't be your friend anymore. You know, or it would have happened in some extreme way. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I had cut you out for
Yeah.
about 10 minutes.
Well, that's what I mean.
When that during the 10-minute period when and the worst is when you're like, we're besties, and they're like, I'm going to the movies with so and so today, and you're like, and I'm sure if I was on the phone with Sarah when she told me, she would pick up on it because that's how close we are. She'd be like, well, suddenly, why are you so quiet, Finn?
Right.
And then I'd have to share the embarrassing, yes, I'm 56 years old and I'm jealous that you have another friend.
That's the thing. Thoughts are just thoughts, you guys.
Just thoughts.
And it is looking at what is the underlying fear and story you're telling yourself.
Because it's always something that it's not.
And it's always about the past.
Oh, God, can we not say that enough, people?
It's some old wound, you know. Oh
Don't
my God.
hold Sarah accountable for having other friends because you have childhood trauma. Don't hold your children responsible for your life because you had childhood trauma. Like, let's free up other people, look at ourselves.
Right. Okay. Finally, this is what we're going to say. When you resolve the resentment piece, why it's so important is you're going to feel more connected to yourself, you're going to feel more connected to other people, and you're going to feel more connected to your higher power, and you will be free. And we're all about the freedom, baby.
And all those people that irritate you, you'll enjoy. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true.
Your whole perception and attitude changes. We love you. Fasten your seatbelt.
Buckle up.
Leaving.